G'day, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Toon Under podcast, the Carabao Cup finalists' best podcast in the Southern Hemisphere. I'm joined by Dimi, who's in Melbourne. How are you, mate?
Very well, mate. Still recovering from the euphoria of making a final, which, as much as Man United fans want to tell us we haven't done anything yet, for us this is a big moment. So can't wait for February 27th at 3:30 our time in the morning. I'm excited already.
We are, and we are joined by a special guest. Also in the Democratic People's Republic of Victoria, we've got Athos. How are you, mate?
Good. I'm actually very happy for Newcastle and for Newcastle fans. I feel both our teams, I'm a West Ham fan, are normally in the same boat. We are very ambitious. We want to push those top six clubs and to be in a final, and you guys haven't won silverware for quite some time. So I think it's fantastic, and hopefully you can really stick it up united next week or whatever it is.
I think we'll get most of the neutrals, I think, going for us. I think most people with a heart or a conscience will be happy for us to finally win something rather than them Red Devils coming back and getting up on their high horse again. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But, yeah, while we're here, this podcast, it's a West Ham preview. Kickoff is 5:30, I think, 5:30 p.m. In the UK,
4:30.
live on Sky, actually.
4:30 a.m.
No, in the UK. 5:30 p.m. in the UK, 4:30 a.m. for us in daylight savings time, 3:30 for the banana benders, and I can't be bothered working out any other time zones in Australia because there's about 5 of them and I don't really care. So we've got Athos here. Tell us a bit about yourself, mate. How did you come to support West Ham? How long have you supported West Ham? And give us the whole sort of jizz about, or not jizz, it's probably a bit right. Give us the whole spiel about how you come to support the Hammers.
Yeah, well, I just fell under the father-son rule. Dad grew up supporting West Ham. It was simply because West Ham were on TV quite a bit in the 70s and the 80s when he was understanding football and getting into it. So that's the team that he picked. And it just flowed on to me and my brothers. And probably when I got to about high school, I really started reading up on the club and the history and the supporters, and you just fell in love with the place. So I really hopped on board. I've been lucky enough to go and watch a few games myself recently. And we've really got onto the team. I watch as many games as I can. You know, growing up, I was getting up at all sorts of hours. I was happy to get up at 4:30, but these days I don't have to think twice, considering how poorly we're playing at the moment. But yeah, I love the Hammers. I love what they're all about, and hopefully we can do enough to stay up this season.
Absolutely, we've all done our Fox Sports treatments and stuff like that on Soccer Saturdays and pushing the red button, trying to find your team. Now we're lucky enough in this day and age where if we don't want to get up, we can get up at our own leisurely time on a Sunday morning, or Sunday afternoon, depending on how big of a Saturday night you've had, and watch a mini match or watch the 3-minute highlights if it's a shit game and you've lost, or if it's a good game and you want to watch it, you can watch the full 90. So we're very lucky here in Australia. We have all them options where we can watch our favourite teams play. Who was your favourite player when you were growing up? I'm always interested to ask people this and see sort of where they go. So who was your sort of favourite players when you were growing up?
I loved Kevin Nolan growing up, and he was a former Newcastle boy, simply because he was always in the right place at the right time to score goals. He had a fantastic partnership with Andy Carroll when Carroll was able to get onto the park, where they would just find each other. And like, he was a good player throughout the ground, but he would always just pop up at the right moment to stick a toe in or stick a head in to score a goal. And just that kind of that cheeky kind of player. And that's what I kind of love. And then you went into that season where Dimitri Payet just ripped things up. I thought he was a fantastic player. And these days, guys like Declan Rice, who's an absolute superstar. I love Skamaka. I think he if he gets going, it can be a real quality player. But those kind of guys, the guys with the personalities and a bit of pizzazz about them.
Nice. Dimi, who was your sort of favourite? Not favourite. What West Ham players did you take a bit of a liking to during your childhood?
Can't say too many West Ham players caught my eye from a positive perspective. I was very happy to see Carlos Tevez keep the hammers up back in the day for that dodgy deal, whatever happened with him and Mascherano. But very happy to see. I'm pretty sure West Ham won either on the last day or second last day at Old Trafford, and I'm pretty sure Tevez scored from memory. And that was as a neutral fan hating Man United. It's always good to see that happen. And obviously, West Ham, like us, are a good historic club, and you don't want to see clubs like West Ham in the second division. You'd much rather see your yo-yo clubs just Everton or Everton exactly. Everton could say. But that's sort of a good early memory for me from West Ham, that Tevez moment.
Yeah, I'm not sure of your age demographic, mate, but I was, before he went into a managerial role, I was a Paolo Di Canio fan. I think that that karate, not the Karate Kick. I don't even know how to describe it. I suppose it is like a bit of a karate kick.
I think.
Yeah, it's like an upright scissor kick, but that was one of the best goals I've ever seen. Like, I used to play indoor soccer back in the high school days, and the guys who organised the team were actually West Ham fans. So we were made to wear West Ham shirts every week because they were our indoor soccer kits. And every game I used to try and kick a goal like the Canio because I just loved it. I don't know that, and I reckon that one and that Henry goal where he has his back to goal. I think he's playing against Man United, and he flicks it up and sort of hits it on the swivel past Schmeichel. They're probably nearly my two favourite non-Newcastle goals in the Premier League. Like, they're just, I just loved it. I don't know why I loved them, but I did. Anyway, we'll move on. We'll move on to this season. Look, the Hammers haven't had the best of seasons. So far anyway, probably halfway through. Finishing 7th last season, and I'm not sure before the Everton game, they're either in the relegation zone or teetering on the edge of the relegation zone, and they've gone up to 16th at the moment. I'll just bring up the table for those watching, those who are listening. We're still 3rd, so that's fantastic. And West Ham. I'm not sure how long that's going to last for, but we might get onto that a little bit later. West Ham is 16th. So what's happened, mate? Like, what's the difference between this season and last season?
Well, our two clubs have actually traded places. That's what's happened. From this time last season. It's a funny one because while the back end of last season was actually quite average too. Like, I think throughout 2022, West Ham only won like 7 games in the Premier League. Like, it was something ridiculous like that. Like, we managed to win enough games against the poor teams to stay in that top 6 fight. Because if you remember, we started the season like a house on fire. I think we were 3rd or 4th at Christmas. We were on fire, and then 2022 came, and I'm not sure whether it was because of the overload in the schedule. We were playing Europa League at the time, and with a paper thin squad. But then you would have thought we recruited really well, brought in guys like Paqueta, Scamacca. So they did everything right off the field, but it just hasn't translated to success on the field. To be fair, there was a bit of bad luck at the start of the season. A few things didn't go our way, and then I don't know, that bad luck just has seemed to continue, and it seems like they just can't get the ball rolling at the moment. Where West Ham last season was a team that, they would never give up, and they were just a team that never knew when they were beat. So you could always back them to score a goal and to make it interesting. It seems like these days they drop their heads quite quickly, and that attitude and that negativity has just seemed to really seep in. So whether they go on a bit of a run now after picking up 2 wins remains to be seen, but there are a few tough games coming up against yourselves. I think we've got Tottenham and Chelsea as well. So a big month, definitely, which will tell us quite a bit about whether they can stay up.
Yeah, well, I had I had the stats boffins hard at work today. Craig, thanks for this. So after last game's win against Everton, they've won 2 in a row, only once this year. So a win on the weekend will only be the second time this year they've won 2 in a row. So that sort of does speak to how sort of inconsistent, I guess, they've been during the season as well. And I think, Danny Ings has sort of been a January signing, keeping up his sort of keeping his colours true. He must be his two favourite colours. So, but he's out. Skamaka's also out. I think is that a long-term injury?
And Kurt Zuma's out as well.
Yeah.
He pulled up score against Everton, I think. So three pretty bigs out. Like you'd start possibly all three if you could. They're in your first team and probably start most places. So it's down to the guys that have been around for a while, like your Bowens and Antonios, to try and pull some tricks out of the bag this weekend.
Yeah, it's probably good as well because after watching a interview with Sean Longstaff in UFC TV in the last few days, his love for his cat is sort of second to none. So having Zuma out's probably a good thing for Sean. Dimi, what do you think about that?
That's the first thing I thought of. I said, thank goodness you can release the cats. They don't have to be locked up for the weekend. It's no damage to be done by Kurt Zuma. So it's thank goodness for that. Let's just say that.
It just reminded me. It's sort of, I didn't have this on the running sheet, but I watched it this afternoon after work. The match cams on UFC TV are literally becoming must-watch games. Must-watch stuff on YouTube. Like I'm not sure if you've seen the one from the semi-final, Dimi, but it's unreal. Like the stuff in the tunnels and all that. It's so good.
Yeah, I saw I've seen clips of it in terms of the goals and the live sound reaction for when the ball went in, and that was just unreal. I mean, to be in that stadium when that first and second goal went in would have been out of this world. I've also seen clips of people in the city centre outside of St James's Park hear the roar when the goals have went in. The roars just reverberate around the whole city. So it's a perfectly placed stadium, and I was lucky enough to visit it in August to see the first game against Forest, and it's a magical place, and the good times are here to stay, hopefully.
Yeah, we get it, mate. We know you've been over there this year. You don't have to keep rubbing it in for everyone, all right? But I can confirm that story about the noise in the city. My auntie used to think the best day of shopping for the year was when Newcastle played Sunderland at St James's Park because the city was empty and she could literally walk around and do whatever she liked, and there was no one there. And she reckons she can hear the roar. She knows something's happened. Like, because you can hear everyone screaming like when she's doing her shopping and stuff like that. So I can confirm that. But mate, Athos, I'll come back down to you. David Moyes' future. Obviously, there was a probably losing your out game the last time against Everton, and unfortunately for everyone in the Premier League, Everton lost that game and got rid of Frank Lampard. I think everyone would have been really happy for him to stay on and really make sure they get relegated. But unfortunately, you guys rolled him over. So is he still sort of on the edge, I guess, or do you think he's sort of that win bought him a few more weeks? How's his situation at the moment?
Well, funnily enough, the fans in our FA Cup game against Derby were chanting his name. They were chanting his name positively. They were doing the David Moyes chant. So whether that, I don't know, says anything, I don't know. But I tell you what, it's a real fickle business, sacking of managers in the Premier League. You look at, Tuchel, who won the Champions League with Chelsea, then he's out the door, Ranieri with Leicester. Whereas, in Australia, in the AFL here, we're giving coaches 10 years to do something. You look at, some coaches have coached 10 years and not won anything, and they've still got a job. So it's really interesting how fickle it is. And, David Moyes qualifies West Ham for Europe twice. We're still in Europe. So I think that might be your saving grace, that we're still in the Conference League. We're in the last 16. If he can win that and deliver a trophy to West Ham, I think he'd almost be immortalised, because the club hasn't won a trophy since 1980, if you don't count the promotion trophies from the championship you get for winning the playoff final. So
we're not allowed to count it, so no one else can count it.
No.
Right.
So I think that's the saving grace. I think that's what everyone's sort of holding on to at the moment. I think most West Ham fans would take a 15th place finish and a good Conference League run. So that's just my opinion. I think they might be holding on to him just to see what he could do there. But obviously, if it does get bad and it's looking like West Ham's really in the relegation zone, he might find it tough. But he's picked up a win now in the league, a win now in the cup. So I think he's bought himself, I reckon, at least another 5 or 6 weeks to see how he goes, or at least until the next Conference League game in March.
Yeah. All right. So, having said all that, we'll bring your predicted 11 up. I will preface this by saying, for those watching, they aren't necessarily in their correct positions. It's just with the names and the format that if you sort of line them up properly, you can't read the names on half of them. So bear that in mind. And one slight oversight, I guess, was Paqueta. I thought he was injured, but he was just forgotten about. So I'll leave this to you, mate. You can go through the team and why you think these guys will play where they will.
Yeah, so it's always interesting when you ask to pick lineups because I've sort of gone with what I think David Moyes will put out, and traditionally or typically against the top sides, especially away from home, he'll just play a back five. In fact, I think he even played a back five against Everton at home, and Everton's the worst side in the league, and everyone was really scratching their heads there. So I think he'll go a back five. This is, I'm pretty sure it's the defence that played against Derby during the week, so I don't see that changing. Kurt Zouma is injured at the moment. I think he's going to be an Andy Carroll situation where he's always, 2 weeks away, and he's end up being out for, 2 or 3 months. So I think this will be the back five. Aguerd, since coming back from the World Cup, he's been superb. So I think he'll do well there. He's really persisted with Souček and Rice in the middle. Rice has been as a fantastic player, but Souček hasn't quite reached the heights that he did a few years ago. So whether he plays him or young Flynn Downs, who actually moved to West Ham from Derby, I thought he was man of the match during the week, but for whatever reason, Moyes just doesn't trust him in the Premier League. Benrahma's the interesting one. It'll either be him or Paqueta. Paqueta is a very good player, but Benrahma this season's probably been one of West Ham's best. He makes things happen on the field. The only problem is Moyes doesn't really like him for whatever reason. They just don't seem to get along. And I think the top two just speak for themselves. They're the only 2 fit strikers at the moment, and they're the 2 that have scored, I think, our last 2 goals. So they'll definitely get the start. So we've played, a 3-5-2 or a 5-3-2 in most games this season, and considering we're coming up against a red-hot Newcastle, I don't see why Moyes would go to a back four or try anything different. He'll just stick to what he knows and hope he can get a point.
Yeah, nice. Hey, Dimi, it feels funny when someone says top side and they're talking about us, doesn't it?
Well, it's funny because I remember we had Athos on this around about this time last year when we went to the London Stadium and we were talking about how West Ham are the top 4, top 6 team chasing European football, and it's funny how basically we're a mirror image of each other. Obviously, West Ham aren't as bad or weren't as bad as we were at the start of last season. And I'm not sure if, in terms of our record now, whether West Ham were that high on the table compared to where we are now. But more or less similar. But it is funny that teams now are paying us that respect. They're coming to St James's Park and they're going to be happy with a point. And
they're low blocking us, mate. They are low block. Yeah, they are low blocking us.
yeah. The old Catenaccio, old school defensive football. But that's okay. We have to expect that. It's a sign of respect, and it's a sign that we're going places. So if we want to become the team and the club that we want to become, we've got to get used to that. So that's no problem for me to see West Ham be a bit more defensive and try and hold on to what they've got. That's no problem.
So I'm interested to hear, Athos, like we were heavily linked with Paqueta during the summer. There was obviously no credible sort of interest from our side, because I'm sure if we actually wanted him, we probably would have put a bid in for him. That generally means that you're interested in a player if you put a bid in. But I think it was all sort of 2 and 2 together. He's Bruno's best mate. He wants to come to the Premier League. Newcastle's the one. But how's he been going? I've read Twitter always reliable for things like this, but he hasn't really set the world on fire, I guess, since he's sort of come to West Ham. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. I think he's had a bit of an interrupted season. He has been, I think, in and out of the side with injury, but you can tell he's a class act. Like anyone that can start for Brazil and do well. Like we saw him at the World Cup where I think he scored a few goals and it looked like he was having so much fun just whipping the ball around with his mates there. And I mean, that's what happens with Brazil. They put on an absolute show when they're all together. So he's definitely a quality player. But like you said, he hasn't brought that to West Ham. He's shown glimpses. He's linked up with Scamacca quite well when they've been on the pitch together. But he's definitely getting better with every game that he plays. It may have just been an adjustment period. I really do hope that he stays for a few years and we see the best out of him. Sometimes when foreigners come to the Premier League, they might take a year or two to adjust. So I think he will be a great player for West Ham, and I'd definitely have him in the side as much as I can because guys like him can produce moments of magic anytime. So the more often he's on the ground, the better, I reckon.
Beautiful. Now, we'll use that as a great segue into our lineup, Dimi, that you've managed to whip up during your busy workday. Basically, one change from our winning Carabao Cup semi-finalists. You've Bruno Paqueta's best mate. They won't get to play against each other, unfortunately, with his suspension. He's going to miss 3 games. He'll be back for the final, which is sort of fantastic. He'll get a nice little tune-up, a bit of a rest, because I think with the Brazil in the World Cup and stuff like that, it might have been a good time for him just to have a bit of a spell and freshen up for the second half of the year. Now, you've tipped ASM and Joel Linton to go back into the midfield. How did you come to that?
Yeah, well, the midfield speaks for itself in terms of Big Joe going back into the middle. I don't think we've got any other option, to be honest, from the start to do that. I think that's going to have to be the midfield 3. There's no really other central midfield option besides Elliot Anderson, and I can't see Eddie starting Elliot Anderson. So Joe Linton's definitely going to go back into the middle, and the big question is going to be who starts on the left. I mean, you've got Maxi, who I think will start. You've got Gordon, who's a new player in who potentially could start, and he could even throw a spanner in the works and start a old smiley mate Jacob Murphy, and he might think that he could do a job and be that workhorse for an hour and then bring on the big guns after an hour. So there is some options on that left wing. I don't think we're short of options on the wing at the moment. It's more making sure that midfield 3 stay fit for at least the next month until Bruno's back. Otherwise, we might need to reshuffle. But in terms of Maxi, I think it's time for him to start. I think he's bided his time and he's had cameos here and there the last few weeks, and he seems to have had a run of training and a run of enough run of games where he's ready to. I think he's ready to start games, and I think there's no better time now to start him against not. Let's all due respect to Athos and the Hammers, not the most solid defensive unit, and there definitely could be some space for him to exploit and just put on a show. And I think he's been waiting for this opportunity, Maxi, and I definitely under the lights at St James's Park, Sky Sports, he's the main man now. Bruno's out. I reckon we could be in for a Maxi show.
Yeah, nice. So I'm pretty sure that Isak will be out with concussion protocols with that head knock he suffered on Wednesday night. On Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, our time. It was unfortunate. I mean, most people, me included, were hoping he was probably going to start this game for Wilson, but it looks like it might have to wait until next week. Now you can probably bet your bottom dollar that Wilson will probably score this weekend, and all that talk of Isak sort of taking his place will get put on the back burner. So I'm interested. Do you think Gordon will be involved in some capacity on the weekend?
I think he will. I think I can't see Eddie starting him. We've seen Eddie doesn't really start new signings straight away in the lineup. He likes to ease them in. So I'd be flabbergasted if Gordon started over Maxi. I think Maxi might have a few words to say to Eddie if he starts over him. So I don't think he'll start, but I definitely think that he'll have a role to play and an important role at that off the bench.
Yeah. I'll come to you first, Athos. We've just signed one of your young kids from your under-21 team. Did play, I think, maybe 1 or 2 games this year as a right back. What can you tell us about young Ashby and what you've seen of him? And I guess you're probably as well placed as anyone to give our listeners and our viewers a bit of an insight into what sort of player he is.
Yeah, so he's only made a handful of first-team appearances, but he was obviously rated quite highly. West Ham fans they're almost gatekeepers of the young kids, considering the club's got a history of a good academy and bringing players into the first team. They've done quite well recently with Ben Johnson and Rice being the 2 standout, but the fans, I think, were a bit confused by this. You never like to see a promising young player leave. It was a similar situation a few years ago when they got rid of Grady Diangana. They sold him to West Brom, I think, and he had broken into the first team. It looked like he was going to be the next big thing, and then all of a sudden he had left. So we'll see what happens here. I think I was reading some quotes from him before. It looked like he wanted to move. I don't think West Ham would have been really pushing him out the door. It didn't look like they needed to. I don't think they need the money as such. But I think he'll be a good addition to Newcastle. He's obviously not going to break into the first team straight away, considering how well you're going at the moment. But definitely someone for the odd, I don't know, Europa League game that doesn't mean anything, or if you need a good depth player, I think he can be a good servant, and it sounds like he wants to be there. So anyone that wants to be there and is a good talent, I think he's represented Scotland as well. I think he's had a few international games, so he's definitely got some talent in him, and I think could slot in quite well for you guys.
Dimi, what do you reckon, mate?
Yeah, I think it's like Athos said. I think it's a good signing. He's definitely can be an understudy to Trippier and probably one of the best right backs in not only England in Europe. So I think he's a fantastic mentor to have and to learn off. And from some of the highlights and bits and pieces that I've seen, he's got a bit of the Trippier about him in terms of can hit a set piece, can cross the ball, does seem to cover the ground well and attack well, which is always nice as a fullback. So look, I think he's a good understudy to have. I think Manquillo at the moment is injured and probably better off that I think we're promoting that young player coming through. Manquillo's had his time at the club. It's probably nice to see Ashby being that younger option off the bench. And I think, look, touch wood, hopefully he doesn't play too many first 11 minutes. That means Trippier is injured. But if you can get a few games here and there and learn off trips, then it's good news.
All right, well, we'll get to the, I guess, the predictions sort of in a way. Athos, how can you guys win this game?
Good question. I think Bruno's suspension does West Ham a huge favour because I think he's one of the best midfielders in the Premier League this season. He's been amazing. So him not being there is quite good. It depends. Like last season when we were on fire, our 2 biggest strengths were our set pieces. We were the best set piece team in the Premier League, and this season I don't think we've scored a set piece goal, and we were electric on the break. We looked okay in transition against Everton. So if they can find that fire again, because there have been times this season where we get the ball past halfway into our attacking third and they just don't know what to do with it. So we're obviously going to be playing on the counter. If they can get the ball to Bowen and he can cut inside and score, and they can find some of that form in transition, then definitely. But I think a win might be a bit too much for us. I think it might be a bit past West Ham. So I think I'd be happy with a draw. After it's still a point and maintains our form, and it's a point closer to 40. So I think they'll be hoping for maybe a goalless draw or a 1-1 draw, but I don't see West Ham winning this game. I think Newcastle just have too many weapons. the defense is just too leaky. Like you've got Emerson and Kufal on as your fullback. So I think ASM and whoever is on the other side will have a field day, and it's whether Wilson's got his scoring boots on. I think Newcastle should win 2-0. It just depends. They'll get that far up and see how much they want to smash us by, or who knows, maybe they're still on cloud nine after Wednesday. So we'll see what happens. But I'm not sort of thinking too much about it. I'll be happy with a draw.
All right, Dimi, I'll ask the same thing to you, mate. How do you think we can win this game?
No, we're just a top team, aren't we? We're just too good. I just think we rock up and we win. Nah, we don't. Yeah. All jokes aside, I think you just got to believe in Eddie Howe and how he's going to be speaking to the boys after that win and making sure that we're grounded. And obviously, it's fantastic. We're in the final. The final's 3 or 4 weeks away. We can't think about the final. The fans can. Fans can book their flights, their train rides, their tickets, whatever they have to do. But the players can't think about that. We've still got 3 massive Premier League games before then. And I think these are the sort of games, again, no disrespect to West Ham, but these are the sort of games, if we want to maintain our top 4 position, we need to bank the 3 points. And like Athos said, their fullbacks look very suspect, especially Emerson. So I really want to see how he reacts and how West Ham reacts to our high press and whether we can force some high turnovers. And in terms of Callum Wilson, I think maybe the fact that Isak won't be there might release the shackles a little bit off him and have that responsibility being the main guy now and doesn't have to look over his shoulder on the bench and say, oh shit, when's Isak coming on? I need to do something. So I think Wilson's good for a couple of goals this week. He's got a good record against West Ham from memory. He scored at the London ground a few years ago when we won 2-0. He scored in that shocking 4-2 result we had last year on the first day of the season when I think we scored after 2 minutes and we thought, oh, how good's this season going to be? And then within an hour, we're like, oh, fuck, we're shit.
We couldn't breathe after 20.
Yeah, we're dead. So all the players said, literally after half an hour, every Newcastle player was completely cooked and we had nothing left in the tank. So at least we know we're not going to be like that. We're going to be fit. We're going to be ready to go. And I just think we're going to have too much. The press will be too much for West Ham. And if we do get an early goal or two, they might just shut up shop and sort of save face and make sure their goal difference doesn't cop an absolute hammering.
Oh, hammering! I like what you did there. Nice.
Hey, that wasn't deliberate, but it was a good one.
Yeah, no, take it, mate, take it. All right, that'll. So, what was your score again?
My score, I'll go 2-0. Callum Wilson double.
Callum Wilson double. All right. I'll need to think about my score a little bit more. I've got 3 in a row for those keeping track at home. Three correct scores in a row. So I'll need to just sit down and crunch some numbers and see what I can come up with. But I'm leaning towards something maybe like a 2-0 or a 2-1 or something like that. But
Keegan Damas, you're going to be called now Keegan Damas, not
No, I'm not. I'm not claiming it.
Has moved away. You're Keegan Damas.
I can't do spreadsheets, so that's definitely not going to happen. Yeah, no. So, that'll just about wrap us up. Athos, really appreciate you jumping on tonight, mate. Loved your insights. Hope you guys have a great rest of the season. Manage to keep yourselves up, but I hope you have a real shit one this weekend. So, once again, mate, thanks for joining us, mate. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me, and likewise.
Dimi, thanks for jumping on, mate. I know you've had a busy night with the hairdresser. It looks great. Yeah, nice. It's nice, shiny too. So, for those of you who are listening, I urge you to jump onto YouTube and have a look at this glistening forehead because it's a sight to behold. Oh, look at that. So, yeah, thanks everyone. If you've made it this far, really appreciate it. If you can give us a like and leave a comment and stuff on YouTube, really helps us out with the algorithms and stuff like that. Jump on our socials, and we love interacting with everyone as well. So, once again, thanks everyone for sticking with us. We'll be back probably Sunday night, I think, for a review of the West Ham game, and hopefully, if Dimi can pull it off, we should have a special guest jump on with us next week. and that'll be a really fun thing to talk about because there's plenty to get through with this potential guest. So stay tuned for that. Keep an eye on our socials, and that'll just about do it. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for listening, watching. Athos, thanks for joining us again, mate. Good night to you. Dimi, thank you very much, mate.
Cheers, buddy.
We'll catch you all again next time.